by about the second day, that's when I started to realize how much jet lag affects you. Now, I've heard people complain about jet lag between Canada and the UK, like especially Toronto, 5-hour difference between Toronto and the UK. But that's nothing compared to a 12-hour time difference that I was dealing with. Like I didn't start to feel normal again until I was getting ready to go home. And then I came home and I felt terrible for at least a week when I got home. And then I got sick. And then I had to go on the road again and travel around and do some traveling. So I was on the road again a week after I got home. So it took me about a month to start to feel normal again after this trip. So it kicked my ass a little bit. But like I said, I felt disenchanted. I had some conversations with some people there that left me, without sharing too many details, left me feeling like I need to find alternatives to working at LG.
Yeah.
Whether that was the intention or not behind the conversations, I don't know. But I got made to feel like I've always felt like I'm just a number at LG, even though I'm good at my job and I'm hard to replace. I don't want to say I'm non-replaceable because everybody's replaceable, but there's certain special qualities of people you can't replace. And I feel like I'm one of those people that brings that to the table, that, that people put up with my negatives because my positives outshine them so much, But I got made to feel like my negatives outshine my positives, and I thought, well, I'm not going to change for LG. I can't become something different for LG. So if LG is not, if I'm not right for LG, then LG's not right for me.
Well, it's their loss then, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that doesn't surprise me at all about a company like LG. I mean, they are so huge and so corporate and so driven. You can tell the way they do business. And here, obviously you work for them, but I've seen them about. I see their products, I see their advertising, I see what they expect the world to think of them. And you can tell that they are a very hard-driven, company that places a lot on their success and all of that. That just comes across. Companies like them and Sony and trying to think of another one like them, but there's bound to be a lot of them. It doesn't surprise me that you would come across that kind of thing without, as you say, without going into details.
Yeah, and so so when I came back, I immediately started, getting the ball rolling a little faster, I guess I would say, because
So it incentivized you. Were you saying there that you thought maybe they were incentivizing you to find something else to do, or? No,
I felt like I was, I felt like I was getting a whip cracked on me, and they were kind of like trying to get me in line a little bit. And I don't mean them as a company. Like I said, because it's a little more personal than that. That's why I'm kind of keeping my cards close to the chest on this comment.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because I don't want it to necessarily get back. I don't even know if it'll get back to the person I'm describing, but.
No, that's fine. No, leave that. Steer clear of that one.
Yeah, but it's, I do know at least one coworker listens to the show on the regular, and he's not anyway involved with the conversation that happened. And I know that he would be saddened to hear me say this stuff, because I know he likes working with me, and I think he considers me a very valuable asset to be part of the team. And even the person that made me feel bad probably does too.
Yeah.
But it made it clear to me that we're on different pages. I mean, like the Korean ideal, the whole thing, and it stems back to incidences that happened before I went to Korea.
Right.
Like there was a situation that I was in that like I felt like it was being handled the wrong way. And more details surfaced about that situation while I was in Korea. And I confronted the situations a little bit, and then I was basically, without saying too many words again, I was basically told that you are a number, and that's all you're ever going to be, and don't trust anybody that works here, including the person you're talking to.
It's cutthroat. That's the difference between the business you're in and the business I was in. I mean, there was a certain element of, I talked earlier about the bureaucracy and things like that, but I never had experience of the cutthroatness of business, where everything's sacrificed to the dollar, everything's sacrificed to the idea that the business must succeed at all costs, which is supposed to lead to the best outcomes because through competition, literally competition, you're actually competing for the space, so your people become secondary to that competition because you must succeed at all costs, because you've got shareholders, you've got the board, all expect things to be going in a certain direction. That feeds all the way down to the people. And I didn't experience that because we were a public service. So the public service aspect of it was always there to act as a cushion, because you had to do the public service, and if that wasn't working, then you had to think again. But in a competitive situation, as long as you're killing the opposition, then that's all that matters, and that feeds down to the individual level. So if you're not the right shaped cog in the machine, then you're going to suffer, I would think.
Yeah. And that's that's exactly how I felt. The cog in the machine was exactly what was rolling through my head.
Yeah.
I just was I'm a square peg in a round hole.
Have you written about that in any way? Has that fed through to your work at all?
I did write a song about it lyrically. I haven't written music to it yet.
Right. So it's working its way through your noggin.
Oh yeah. No, definitely. And the thing is like when I took the job at LG 7 years ago, I even remember telling people like this is temporary. I can't see myself retiring here. But then my mind got changed for a while. I kind of did start to see it,
Mm-hmm.
But I said if I was getting paid what I feel I deserve, I would not even be thinking about it. I don't think I'd even be thinking about it.
Yeah.
Like that's a sad thing. And the really messed up thing is I had a job offer from a competing manufacturer about a year ago.
I remember you talking about that, yeah.
For exactly double what I'm getting paid here. But I had to move to the side of Canada, and I didn't want to move again.
Aye.
But I told LG I was willing to, and I even sent them the job offer, the writing, I had them writing, and said, "This is what I've been offered. I expect this to stay here," and they didn't even reply. Didn't have the respect to say no. It was just sort of like, "Did you hear something?"
Yeah, it's like unhappy employee. Well, he can just leave.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah. It doesn't. The corporate mindset is fucked up. I mean, it really is. We had an HR department that was like that. It was sometimes you wondered about what the hell they were thinking. Some of the pronouncements and some of the ways they dealt with people was. It's not the same as business as I just said, because you can't negotiate your pay as a civil servant. There's no prospect of that at all, and you don't expect to. But you do expect to be treated with dignity and respect.
Yeah.
But quite often that didn't happen. It was that there were corporate people that came in from outside who went into HR, who'd been HR in banks and things like that, and that really didn't sit well with the civil service ethos. When I started in the civil service in 1977, can you believe that?
A while ago.
When I say that number, it's like, God, that's like it's like a different world. But when I started, it was very much about the public service. It was very much about, we do this because it's important, sort of thing. And as time went on, it got more and more diffused as they brought outsiders in. So the way the civil service used to be is you came in at the bottom and you got trained to do the next job up, and you did that job, and you got trained to do the next one up, and you had a career. And if you were, if you pleased your boss and you were competent, you would rise up. And at the end, it was impossible to get promoted because it just brought people in from outside at the higher grades, and they just fucked everything up. They didn't understand public service. They brought in competition when there was no competition. There's no prospect of competition. You're running a service, or you're running a public service that has to be done by you because it's based on legislation. Nobody else can do it. But try explaining that to these people. It was. Yeah, and it just all turned to shit. By the time I left, it was terrible, and it still is, apparently. So so I do sympathise with you. It's slightly different experience we've had, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's always kind of like this different sides of the same coin here and there. And but there's pros and cons to everything. Like I'm terrified of what I'm about to do if it works out. Because there's going to be stresses and other things I haven't had to think about. Because the same kind of cushiness you talked about when you work for like a civil thing, the corporation provided that to me too. Because being nameless and being a number has its benefits too, right?
Well, you can hide. There's no hiding place if you're in business for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Like everybody who's got a complaint, it goes right to the top. If someone's upset with me, I'm going to see it on Facebook. I'm going to see like a bad review, right? That's going to be staring at me forever. So like
I guess you're 40 now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're getting to that point where you have to make that decision, because if you don't make it now, you won't do it, because you're getting to that stage of life where you need to plan the next bit of it. And I think you're doing the right thing. And I think probably, I would think if we're still talking about this in 2 years, 3 years time, you'll think differently about that, and you'll wonder how you ever survived at LG, how you ever made that work.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope you're right.
Yeah, because you will do it. You'll get there.
Because the first company I worked at in appliance repair was a place in Waterloo called Waterloo Appliance.
Mm-hmm. And
that's where I cut my teeth and learned how to fix appliances and learned about the business. And my boss was upsetting me there with some of because they're a family-run company, and if you're not part of the family, you're always just you're just a golden goose, right? Mm-hmm. You're nothing more. And I remember asking him for a raise one time, and he said to me, he goes, because we were paid commission, so we got raises when they raised their rates, and he took pride in being one of the cheaper companies in town, because that's what he liked, being affordable, right? And I'm like, but your affordability means I have to be frugal, but you're getting rich, I'm having to live in austerity, So I said, I'd much rather maybe you boost it up a bit and treat me, or give me a bigger cut of the commission, if you think, because I know I'm worth more, right? And he said to me, the more I pay you, the less I make. That was his response.
Duh.
And I was like, yeah. So I was like, okay, well. And at the time, we had a contract with a bunch of companies like Electrolux, Frigidaire, right? We had contracts with General Electric, contracts with Whirlpool, LG, a bunch of high-end companies that were, so you had like very few and far between from them. So our big money makers, and Bosch too, our big money makers were Frigidaire, Electrolux, and LG. That was most of our business. And my boss did not like working for the Koreans. He didn't like what the Koreans expected from us. So he just told them to fuck off one day. We're not fixing your appliances anymore.
Right.
So I went from having like 9 hours of work a day to like 4 hours of work a day. So my paychecks got cut in half because my boss was too angry to swallow his pride and be like, okay, we'll do it your way. That's all they want. They just want us to handle their company a little differently than we handled everybody else. And what they wanted from us would have made us more money, because he just didn't want to do what he was told. It wasn't about, because they wanted us to do things just a little differently and be more efficient. And he's going like, you do it my way, my way or the highway was his attitude. And they said, okay, we'll hire someone else to do it. We don't care.
Yeah.
So I just bought a house. I was by myself and I'm paying a mortgage and I'm barely scraping by. And all of a sudden my paychecks had cut in half.
Oh, wow.
And I was livid, and my boss didn't care. He was like, whatever. Sometimes things slow down. There's no guarantee you're going to make this much money and that much money. I'm like, yeah, but that letter you wrote my bank said it was when I got my mortgage. And so me and a coworker were livid. And my coworker, he had married a woman who was very wealthy. She was like, her family like ran the town. They had like, there was a theme park in the middle of town. They owned it, and they owned like a bunch of restaurants. They owned a bunch of campgrounds, right? So he didn't need the paycheck, but he just had to work because it's a source of pride, right? And he was fixing appliances before he met her, so like that was his identity, So him and I were both upset. So he left the company to start his own business with the intention that once he got it going, I would leave the company and then be a partner with him. And so I did. So I left Waterloo Appliance and started working at Precision Appliance. The first contract we had was LG, right? So we were doing the LG calls again. We were back in the good graces of LG, and things were going pretty well for a bit. But the thing about my business partner is he used to be an alcoholic. He used to be a drug addict, but he quit all this stuff when he got married because his wife wouldn't put up with this shit, right? But all this, that monster came back, and he started like doing cocaine and getting drunk at work.
Oh, wow.
And was destroying the business, and I was having to work extra time to make up for it, and then personal things got in the way, and I got lied to by not just him, but a good friend and who I let in the business to help us, and he betrayed me a bit and painted he painted this whole picture of like what I'm going to do for you, and made it sound like he quit a job to come work for us when it turned out he got fired. He needed a job.
All right. Okay.
Like things got really ugly really fast, and so I was in a really bad place, and the company was losing money. And now I'm like with a company that's like, I might not have any money soon. I'm going to have a paycheck and I still have this mortgage to pay. Right. And LG owed us a lot of money, like something like $25,000 or $30,000 in unpaid service calls. And I thought LG was screwing us around, but it was my boss wasn't submitting the paperwork properly. Right. So they were going like they would he'd send in a bill and they'd be like, that's not the right serial number. That doesn't belong to us. And then he'd be like, and then he wouldn't resubmit it with the right serial number on it. So we just wouldn't get paid for it. But he's still like be expecting to get paid, and then sending like these angry emails to them going like, I'm going to take you to court. I'm calling lawyers.
Jeez.
Right. So I didn't know this was happening. Right. Cause I'm the guy out doing service calls all day. I'm working my ass off trying to bring money in. Right. So I got on the phone one time with a guy who is he's a really high up member at LG. I got on the phone with this guy and I'm yelling at him, calling him names and stuff, saying like, you owe us this much money. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, how do you expect us to work like this? And he goes, Chris, I don't think you know what's going on there. Like, your company's very unorganized. Like, you are not doing your job properly. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm one of the best guys in the business. I fix appliances all day long. He's like, that's not your problem. It's what's happening inside the office is the problem. What's happening behind the doors, which wasn't my job. My boss was my business partner was taking more of the administrative role while I was taking more of the service role, right? And so this was kind of like light was put onto the situation about what was going on. And then at the time there was a manager that was dealing with us who was a complete idiot, who was new to the company. And I said, why would you hire that idiot? You could have hired me to do that job and I would have done it. And he's like, well, I didn't know you wanted the job. I didn't know you were even looking for the job. And I was like, well, I guess you're right. I'd have to tell you I was looking for a job. And then he called me back the next day. He goes, are you looking for a job at LG? And I said, well, I don't know, but I can't work here anymore. Like this business is in the hole. Like it's just going to cost me money if I stay here and air and my life, and other things were happening to me personally. Like my life was falling apart outside of work because I was focusing too much on work. And so I said, yeah, I'll consider that. I'll consider working for you guys. Maybe, you jerks, you owe me all this money. And then they sent out the guy that would be my future boss to come out to town to take me out for lunch and, wine and dine me and sort of tell me what they would want from me and what they want me to do. And they wanted me to be a technician, and I just work on LG stuff. I get an LG van. I get to work from home. I mean, like, I don't have to go to an office. I just get in my van and go to do service calls, and they ship all my parts to me. I don't have to go to like everything was going to be like self-contained. And I thought, that's really good. I said, but how much are you going to pay me? And they offered me this really terrible salary. And I was like, that's not enough money for me to leave to work for you. And they said, yeah, but there's bonuses on top of it. And they laid out the bonus structure. And they're like, you're going to make this much money on the bonuses. Like, this is the average what people make across the country. I looked at the averages and I looked at how the bonuses are paid. And I said, I'm going to make double that. And they're like, oh, you think you're that good, are you? And I said, I'm telling you, that's how good I am. I'm going to double those bonuses. Not a problem. And they're like, okay, cocky, smart asshole. Sure. If you think you can double the bonuses, go for it. And I did. Like I did so well with the bonuses. They changed how they pay the bonuses because they were paying me too much. And every year
you broke the system.
They kept raising the bar every year, and I just kept jumping over it. Like every year I made the max bonus every year.
Cool.
Right. And so I was loving it. Like all of a sudden my paychecks were twice what they used to be.
Yeah.
I wasn't chasing people for money anymore. I didn't have a business partner I had to deal with anymore. So everything got better. Yeah. Like life was good. Like literally life was good.
LG.
And yeah, exactly. And I was praising. I remember being at the first Christmas party, drunk on soju, screaming in the parking lot, life's good. And like hugging the bosses and stuff, and they thought it was great, and, and then everything was good for a while. And then they just kept turning the screws on me. Like, hey, I know we promised you could work in Cambridge, but we need you to work in Toronto. And I was like, that's an hour and a half drive to work. Like, yeah, we'll count for that. Like, you're still going to work the same amount of hours, kind of, but you're going to do that. You're going to do less service calls. I'm like, but then I'll get a smaller bonus. And so then I ended up, so then I had to do more call. I had to do the same amount of calls. So I was working later, driving longer, spending more time in traffic, and they just kept turning the screws a bit. And then the pandemic hit, and the pandemic ruined it for me because they are all sitting at home in their pajamas on their laptops saying, you guys need to work harder. You guys need to do this. And we didn't have face masks. We didn't have hand sanitizer because we couldn't buy them anywhere. It was all sold out everywhere. And we didn't have time to do anything because we're at work. Everybody else that was buying up all the shit was on leave, getting their government checks to stay at home. Right. But we were because we're considered an essential service. We had to continue to work. So we found ourselves, like I found myself like watching this charade of this pandemic unfold, right? Where we're like, they weren't doing anything to protect us, but they were going through the facade. Like, you got to wear a mask and stay 6 feet from people, but you can still go into people's homes and fix their washing machines. And
I know, the whole thing was nonsense.
Yeah, right. So I'm going like, we're not doing anything to help anybody. We're just hurting the people that we shouldn't, and we're protecting the people that don't deserve it. And I had to deal with the political nonsense, right? Because like customers were going crazy. The people that were leaving their homes were going crazy. So they would like, I'd be coming into their house and they'd be going like, you're the first person I've seen in 2 months. Like and I'm like, okay. And they're like, what's it like out there? I'm like, it's pretty much the same. There's just less people. There's less traffic. Parking it's a lot easier to find a parking spot. And they're like, isn't it dangerous out there? And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, you'd really like it. You should probably leave the house, and they're going like, and they'd be treating me like I was a disease pariah coming into their house to infect their family. And I'm like, you called me. You asked for my help. Don't you treat me like this. You should be like staying away from me and giving me what I need, not expecting me to come in and like in a hazmat suit and like sanitize everything before I work. Like, I know. Pull your head out of your ass. I'm the person helping you. How
quickly that happened. That was what was shocking.
Yeah, it was like,
how quickly it turned from, well, it got nasty with people accusing one another of all kinds of things and all that kind of stuff, and it really was an eye opener, wasn't it? It was like, yeah, you can see how the very worst things could happen because people are not thinking this through.
Yes,
they're not thinking about the implications and all that. It was very scary for a while.
Yeah, it was, and I remember like, and our bosses kept rewriting history. Right? Like 3 or 4 months into the pandemic, all of a sudden we had face masks and hand sanitizer. And then they claim we had them all along. And we're like, no, we didn't. They're like, yeah, you did. Quit whining. We did everything we could for you. And I'm like, no, you didn't. And I remember like, I'd be on like Walmart.com looking for hand sanitizer and there would be some, but it'd be overpriced. And I'd say to the boss, I can buy some hand sanitizer here, but it's going to be over budget for the corporate card. And he'd say, sorry, if it's over budget, you can't have it. But then 3 months later, he's saying, yeah, you had hand sanitizer. And I'm like, I remember you telling me no. I had the email to show you, and it was like, it was very demeaning, and they kept saying, suck it up. You're lucky you have a job. Like, just be grateful you still have a job because a lot of people aren't working right now. And I'm like, I'd want to be that guy. You know what I'd be doing right now? I'd be sitting at home smoking dope, writing music. I'd be so happy. I'd be so happy right now if I got to like go and do the pandemic thing, and be the scared guy looking out the curtains going like, those assholes out there ruining it for everybody. Yeah. But I was on the opposite end of it. And that informed the way I viewed the pandemic, right? Because we were all getting COVID. All of us technicians were getting COVID at work, and no one gave a shit.
Did you get COVID?
Oh yeah, multiple times before the vaccines and everything were available. Like, so by the time the vaccines came out, I was like, give me a fucking break. I don't need that shit. I got more T cells and white blood cells fighting this shit than you guys can manufacture in a needle. Like I'm fine with it. If you're afraid of it, you deal with it, but leave me alone. Yeah. So that was very. It was very telling about like the culture of it, right? Like the people that abused us were the same people that expected us to take their experiments, even though we went through the other experiment. Like we couldn't hide from it. We're going like, if this is really a life-threatening disease, I guess I might die. But at least your fridge works. At least your dishwasher works.
Yeah. That's the important thing. As long as the technology works, it doesn't matter if the technicians drop dead because there's always another technician.
Exactly, and that's
the way the bureaucracy looks at it. Pricks.
Yeah, and so I got customers acting like I'm endangering their family, but it doesn't matter that I'm endangering my life to fix their fucking dishwasher.
Yeah.
So when you realize your life is less value than a working appliance, you start to look at the system a little differently.
Indeed.
And then when people and those people tell me to get over it now, like get over it, man. We all know you were right now, but like, who cares? It's like I care. I still care.
Yeah, but what you should say to those people, if people do say that, is say, well, the next time I'm telling you something, just remember that I was right about the last time.
But they won't.
And don't give me all your bullshit. I would fell out with a guy over that sort of thing. I would have considered to be one of my best friends. And I think one of the last conversations we had was, when he said that I stupidly said, I'm usually right about these things, and I think he took offence at that. Like, people don't like people who are right about things. That offends some people. They squirm under the idea that somebody might know something or have spotted something that they haven't spotted, so it makes them very uncomfortable. They don't like it, but they can't articulate it. They can't deal with it. They don't encompass it and let it change them, which is what you and I would do. I would think I've felt that myself many times. Where I've felt uncomfortable about something, and instead of going, reject it or be destructive about it, I let it change me.
Yeah.
And then you come out of that with a new sort of way of thinking about things, which helps you the next time you come across that. But a lot of people don't want to grow that way. They just want you to be, I don't even know what they really want from people like me. I mean, I don't know, what do you want? Do you want me just to sit there and go, oh, it's fine, oh, everything's okay, when every particle of me is screaming that it's not okay?
Exactly.
I don't know quite how it's supposed to work, but it doesn't work that way with me.
Well, putting yourself outside your comfort zone, I think, is an incredible human thing that everybody should do on a regular basis, because that does create growth and understanding, and putting yourself in someone else's shoes, but especially making yourself uncomfortable. Because if you can get comfortable in an uncomfortable place, you've learned a new skill. You've learned something, a new coping mechanism. Same reason why I like psychedelics, because I love having a good time on psychedelics, but the bad times are the best, because those are the ones you learn from. Those are the ones that create a stronger character. You learn nothing when you just giggle all night and look at and like listen to music.
Yeah.
And those are good times. Those are great times. I love those times. And no one wants a bad trip. But the day after a bad trip is one of the best experiences you could ever imagine,